People believe a GQ reporter leaked something about Jimin. People are also demanding Jimin's song Who to be removed from Billboard and what this is about. And then we have people saying that the label is taking legal action. Say Dumplings, it's Dave Disci. Let's get into it. So if you are not aware, the label is currently being investigated by the National Assembly. So there are things happening over there, and a lot of the internal stuff is being looked at right now in court. A bunch of artists have come out to talk, and it's been one controversy after the other as people are starting to uncover what the artists are saying and what might be happening within the label. It's also important to take a lot of these things with a grain of salt, even though I know most people probably wouldn't take it with a grain of salt, because what an artist says is going to be from their experience, and what actually ends up happening behind the scenes in a company is going to be a different experience. So the label or any company in general isn't always going to act in the best interest of one person. They're going to act in the best interest of keeping the company alive, which then in turn would serve the artist or the talent well, because if the company is still alive, then the talent can continue to perform, make money, and do all of that stuff. Now, it was recently believed that some of the internal documents have come out. Now, I don't really want to get into the specific internal documents and what actually came out, but there's a lot of people who have been saying that that has happened. Now, there is this rumor going around online that the label is now taking legal action against the National Assembly because they allegedly leaked internal documents. This is not how court works, and this is often why when I read these things, I tend to think about the audience who is writing this and how they tend to skew younger. First of all, when you're in court, there's no such thing as an internal or private document. Everything comes out. Anything that's being mentioned in court now, the judge will have to have that subpoenaed and have that document come out. And so it's no longer a private document. It's now considered public. So that would be like the employee documents, all of that stuff. If that's brought up in court, then it has to be shown to the court. And then as for things like financials and all that sort of stuff, the label is a public company, so they have to share that every year anyway. So nothing of the company right now is technically private. There's also no evidence or documents to support the label taking legal action against the National Assembly. There were some people who were saying that the label seems to have really big balls to take legal action on a governmental figure like that, specifically saying that HYBE must feel like they own Korea. I find this so interesting because it was not too long ago in which people were talking about how the label should take legal action against the defense military for forcing the BTS members to enlist. You can quite literally sue anyone. If you feel like the Supreme Court, the specific law, the freaking president has wronged you with, you can sue them. That's the beauty of law, I guess. And if you feel like someone has done something wrong, no matter how big they are, you can still say your side of the story and try to get your situation fixed. However, I don't believe the label is taking legal action, but if they felt wronged, they're allowed to. And I would hope that they're allowed to, because that would set the precedent that we're all allowed to if we feel like we're being wronged. People have been protesting a Jimin song Who. This was interesting because there is no controversy surrounding the song, at least not right now. I don't remember them being really much controversy back then either, but I know for sure there really isn't any now. But the reason why there is even any controversy is because people are confused as to why it's still charting. And really there's no other reason for a song to chart other than the fact that people are still connecting to it today. And it's still being listened to, downloaded, and shared. And the numbers of any song or any stream or whatever speaks for itself. And if you're seeing that it's still on the charts and it's doing well, then that's because people like it. Now the top songs on the charts right now are APT by Rosé and Bruno Mars, Die With A Smile, also by Bruno Mars and Gaga, and then we have Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish. And then of course the fourth song is Jimin. There were definitely some people who felt like these songs fit and these songs are what people are listening to right now. However, there were definitely people who felt like the top list didn't actually make sense, specifically talking about a Jimin song. One person mentioned that all four were well deserved, and then another person decided to chime in and say actually only the top three are deserved and Jimin doesn't deserve to be there, basically insinuating that they would like Jimin off the charts. And then some other people decided to chime in to say that they're not trying to be a hater of BTS or Jimin, but they have actually never heard of the song Who. That's actually the beauty of charts and all that sort of stuff. Any person can chart on the charts, and it doesn't actually even have to be a globally recognized song, or it doesn't even have to be this song that's all over the radio. It can just be a song that some people enjoy, and then it gets a lot of streams. People are still paying for it, people are still listening, and then it remains on the charts. I personally really enjoy the song, and I do feel like it's where it needs to be. However, it's a very odd thing to say that just because you haven't heard of the song personally, that it doesn't deserve to be on the charts. It falls in line with this belief that just because something is famous, it is better, when that's not always true. And it might be more commercially or generally liked, which is why it can be considered more famous, but that's not always what connects with the people individually. And BTS's music has never really been about only selling. It's always been about art first. So I do think it's a little bit rude to insinuate that he doesn't belong there, or that the song isn't as important because some people haven't heard of it, or it's not as big or on the radio as much. Quite frankly, I'm really proud and really excited to see any of the members go up on the charts. I really hope to see more, and I don't really see these things as competition. I know award shows and people in the industry often like to make it seem like music is about competition, but it's not. It's about expressing yourself, it's about putting something out there, and yeah, it's about making a little bit of money and selling the art, but everything else that goes along with it, like awards, maybe a certain level of notoriety, fame, whatever, that's all extra. That doesn't really mean that the art is good or bad. There's also been a recent GQ magazine interview from Australia that has recently gone viral again. This was an interview in which Jimin talked about wanting to focus more on human relationships and hoping that in the future he can focus a little bit more on that, or show that side of him. And this was interesting because this interview was a couple of years ago, so some people think that this was a hint towards admitting a relationship. Specifically, maybe like a day where he will. And people think that the staff or the employee of GQ maybe knew something that was like leaked and it was implying something from the get-go. It's interesting to assume these things because you never know how much of this is actually real or isn't. I often take things with a grain of salt, like what people are saying, because there's just so many ways you can interpret what Jimin specifically said. The question before it, like leading up to that question, was talking about his music. So the interviewer wasn't asking anything about a relationship or anything like that. The interviewer was asking specifically about the direction of Jimin's art, to which Jimin responded that he would like to focus more on human relationships. This is showing his interest in singing about relationships, friendships, romantic partners, things like that. So he was saying that he was going in that direction, which is exactly what he ended up doing with things like Crazy and other songs. He never specifically said that he was going to look into one day revealing a romantic partner or anything like that, but even if he did say that, that was going to happen inevitably anyway. The members have all talked about at length wanting to be in a relationship one day and to have romantic partners and all that stuff. So obviously one day they probably would admit to having a romantic partner. Now, does this mean that it will be anytime soon or that anything like that would come out soon? I don't know, and I don't think so. I think the members have been very heavily focused on the military even before then. They're focused on their solo career, and then afterwards they're probably going to be focusing on BTS for a little bit before they even think about going into a relationship. I think people underestimate how much time it takes to do something, and when you're in the midst of a tour or a promotion period, if you're not filming or shooting or doing any of that stuff, then you're rehearsing, practicing the dance, learning the lyrics, making sure that's all perfect. This all takes a lot of time, and even learning the simplest choreography can take a few hours, at least in the beginning, and then afterwards it's just perfecting it and making sure that it becomes natural. Then on top of that, it's singing while dancing and making sure that that is learned and it becomes muscle memory. On top of that, things like press and interview and all that stuff takes hours. Sometimes they might have a makeup artist just put makeup on at the beginning of the day, but if the makeup artist is doing this in between every single press thing, like radio and then TV and all that stuff, then they have to do makeup or touch up in between constantly. Then you probably have to add another 20, 30 minutes in between each of those press activities, and then it probably takes anywhere from 1 to 2 hours to actually film the specific talk show or whatever it is. So if you're doing like 5 in one day alongside rehearsal and all that stuff, their day is gone. So there's no chance or opportunity in there to have a relationship. And what type of romantic relationship would that be if two people never saw each other? Let me know what you think. Make sure to check out Patreon for more videos. Link down below. Thanks. Just leave a comment right here. Love you. Bye.